Buenas tardes, estamos con el profesor Steven Smith, un invitado muy especial para el programa de diseño, la Facultad de Artes y Diseño de la Universidad Jorge Tadeo Lozano. Vamos a hacer una pequeña entrevista con el profesor Smith. Profesor, good afternoon.
Thank you.
Welcome. Vamos a hablar primero sobre aspectos históricos de su trabajo. So, Professor, your research interests in memory, creative cognition, metacognition, and also topics about psychology are shared with the professors Finke and Ward. What happened with this prolific team?
Well, the team, we first started working together in the 1980s. Probably much of your audience doesn't remember the 1980s, but it was a long time ago. And we worked together through the 1980s and 90s.
Okay.
And then Dr. Fink took a leave of absence. He left. He wanted to try private life for a while, and now he's at Texas State University in San Marcos. And I visited him there, and he's doing quite well. But we haven't done any research together. He doesn't do much more writing. But Dr. Ward is now at the University of Alabama, and he was the editor of Journal of Creative Behavior for many years, and now he continues with his own research on creative cognition. So we worked together for a while. Now we're doing our own things.
Okay, thank you. Ahora vamos a hablar un poco acerca de la prolífica carrera del profesor Smith, su cantidad de libros y artículos. So, you have published more than 100 books, paper, chapters, and conference proceedings. Which do you consider are the best of these works?
Of those works, I don't know what are the best ones, but the ones that I like the most, that I think that we did the best job on, I would start with our 1992 book, which was our first book on creative cognition, co-authored by Dr. Fink, Ward, and myself.
The more famous, of course.
And that made a big impact on people. We were going to do a different book first, but the publishers convinced us to do that one, and that was good advice. Okay. Next, I would also consider my first article on design fixation. This was in 1991, and it was my first foray into the field of design. So I'm a psychologist. I didn't know anything about design. Now I only know a little bit about design. But a design engineer, David Jansen, had a student who was taking my class. And so he got the two of us together. I was studying fixation in psychological issues, and then we did that paper on design fixation, which has now become pretty well known. And then I would also say, well, I have another book that is an edited book called The Creative Cognition Approach. Okay. And in there I had a chapter on fixation, incubation, and insight, and I was really pleased with the way that came out too. So those would be my favorites.
We have the opportunity to translate some article about you, the design fixations.
I hope it sounds better when you translate it.
Yes. Ahora vamos a hablar un poco con el profesor Steven acerca de los posibles errores que se pueden cometer a la hora de interpretar su trabajo. So, Professor, you have been widely cited by different journals, by academic research, and stuff. In Google, for example, we have found 9,395 times.
Wow.
Have you ever found any misinterpretations of your work?
Unfortunately, yes. There have been misinterpretations of my research. When I first began studying creativity, the first subject I was interested in was incubation. And incubation, the phenomenon of incubation, refers to a case where you're working on a problem, you work on it, you get stuck, you put it aside, you stop thinking about it for a while, and then later you may come back to it, or maybe while you're away from the problem, the solution pops into your head, and
Yes.
that's the incubation effect. And when I first started studying incubation, the theory that people thought was the reason for incubation was they thought there were unconscious processes in the mind that were producing these ideas. When I first started studying incubation, I thought that was not the correct theoretical interpretation, so I pursued a different interpretation. My interpretation said, no, you don't have to use unconscious processes to describe incubation. What you really need is a shift in your mental set. When you put the problem aside, your mental set shifts, you come back to the problem, you think about it a little bit differently, that's what gives you that new insight. And then people would cite my articles and they would say, and this shows that it's unconscious processes.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
This is a good question. Some people also confuse with procrastination.
Yes.
It's another mistake.
Procrastination is not as productive as incubation because in procrastination, when you're done, you still haven't done anything.
Exactly.
When incubation is over, now you have a new insight.
Exactly. Ahora vamos a tocar un poco el tema específicamente de su trabajo sobre la creatividad. Professor, in your own experience, how difficult is it to design or create something completely novel? Also, in your opinion, is creativity inherited or development? And can you explain that, please?
Yes, I'll take that as a two-part question. Can people create something that is 100% new? Everything about it is new. No, that's impossible. You would have to be God. You would have to create atoms and matter and the whole world. So that's not possible. But once we have that answer out of the way, people can create. So there's a continuum. Some things are only a little new. It's just like last year's model, but look, we made these new improvements. Some things are very new. You see some new product or new piece of art or something like that is completely unimagined by people before. And yes, that happens all the time. It's happened throughout history, and we can look back at those examples of things that were completely new. We never had an internet. If you go back 50 years, no one would have believed that was possible, that waves that come through the air. So they would have been totally surprised to hear about something like the internet, and they would think that that's a completely new thing in the world. It would be like magic. The second part of your question was, is creativity inherited, or is it something that you develop with your life experience? I am of the opinion that a small part is inherited, but a very, very small part.
Very small.
Very small part. Not enough even to worry about. It's so small that in comparison to the way that we develop creativity as a function of our upbringing and our experiences, that is by far the biggest influence. Okay. So people may think, oh, I don't have the genetics, I can't be creative. That's crazy. That's crazy. If you have the right experience. Pardon me?
But it's a good excuse to.
It's only an excuse. It's only an excuse. Everyone can be more creative regardless of your genetics, and so development and learning can improve that.
Perfect. I agree with you that. Ahora vamos a hablar un poco sobre, perdón, algo más de la creación, específicamente para los diseñadores. So, Professor, you are a psychologist. Your specialty is cognitive processes, right? Yes. And you share your studies with designers and engineers in addition to psychologists. So have you ever designed something by yourself? Can you tell us something about your own creation?
I have designed a couple of things myself, but they were so insignificant compared to what your students do all the time. I'm a little embarrassed to talk about it, but you asked me. I designed when I moved into my home, the room in the back of my house, it's a very long room, and the wall is all glass, and the glass looks out into many, many trees and a lot of animals that live out there. And so what the glass does was create this artificial barrier between the inside and the outside. And I wanted to see if I could create more of a continuum between the inside and the outside. So I built 2 planters to plant cactus in. One inside, and I did my first stonework that I've ever done before, and I tried to make the one inside very neat, and the one outside on the other side of the window is sort of a rough reflection of the one inside. So I have plants growing outside, I have cactus growing inside, and so I was very proud of that, but I think I'll stick to psychology.
Okay, we have a short time, Professor, excuses for that, but let me ask the last question.
Okay.
At this moment, at the Texas A&M University that you work in, what are the procedures for conducting a research project?
For doing a research project, such as one in psychology, I mean, you could do research in any area, but for one in psychology, you have to begin in terms of the procedures. You need to start by having an idea so that when you do research, you're going to be using people's time. There will be people that participate in your research experiments, and if you don't make the research worth their while, you've wasted their time. So the first thing we have to do is make sure this is a scientifically valid project that you want to do. So you would have to go through someone like me, a professor, or someone else who is an expert on that. We would have to say, oh, fix this, fix that, start over, whatever it may be. Once that's decided, then the next procedure is we have to get permission in terms of the ethics of the experiment. You can't harm someone physically or psychologically or take advantage of them or shock them. That's another part of the procedure. Then once that's over, then you have to physically program the experiment. Usually we do this with computer programs that present a set of stimuli, and the participants give a certain number of responses. And then once that's arranged, then we get the human subjects to sign up. We get those from psychology classes, and then if everything works out, they finally show up, you run the experiment and see how it turns out.
Okay, amazing, Professor. So thanks for your time.
You're quite welcome.
That is all.
It was a pleasure.
Gracias.